This is Maker Galaxy.
We're always talking about the future of design, the future of technology, the future of making. In a world where we can interact with empty space, a world where we can 3D print our own shower curtain rings and bionic ears, a world where we'll be sending people to space for vacation. How do we find the next big thing? Maker Galaxy is a show that explores the crossroads of design, technology, and the future of making. This episode is brought to you by CADjunkie.com. Be sure to head over and check out the new Moto Zen UI created specifically for industrial designers. Industrial designer Adam O'Hearn hand-coded this new way of experiencing Moto with enhanced studio environments, toolbars, and more. The best part? It's free. Head over to CADjunkie.com for a free membership and grab that free download. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Simon Martin, here at EVD Media's NYC studio. This week, we're talking smart devices and more specifically, smart homes with the designers behind the recently funded and still funding Kickstarter project Neurio. Neurio is the first product from new startup Energy Aware that aims to connect your home to the cloud and bring home automation to your smart devices. We'll be talking to Energy Aware's VP of Software, Ali Kashani, and VP of Hardware, John Hallam, about how they developed the platform, how their open API works, why they chose to go with crowdfunding, and ultimately what they think the smart home will look like in 5 years. So the Neurio is a learning home system that you guys are putting on Kickstarter that aims to track energy usage. Could you explain this to us a little more about what it is and what your guys' individual roles are in the development?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to basically add intelligence to our homes. The idea is that, we always forget our clothes in the washer or leave something on by accident and we leave our home. And we always, wonder, did I forget something before I left on vacation or something, right? So we are going to create this really cool technology that would change the way we interact with our homes. So our product basically monitors your home's power use and uses some really clever algorithms to figure out what the appliances are up to. It can communicate that to your favorite apps or to your other Internet of Things connected devices. So it basically can make an ordinary appliance really smart. It helps them learn. And we are also making it an open platform so all the hackers and makers can actually create their own things with it.
So, okay, at this point, first of all, that's awesome. But second, what other applications do you think where do you see this going with people hacking it and adding apps to the functionality? What's going to happen there?
The way we interact with our homes since homes got wired hasn't really changed all that much compared to, the way our cars have changed. A lot of other things have changed. Our cars today have the same amount of processing power that Apollo 11 had when it landed on the moon. So the problem is that we still interact with our appliances with buttons and, knobs. And the idea here is that we can bring context into the mix. We can let appliances know what the users are actually up to. So if your coffee maker knows that you're about to wake up, it could, start making coffee before you even have to come in and, press a button. Or your hot water can kind of, go off at night, and then before you are about to go take your shower, it would kind of turn itself on and, get ready. So this is kind of adding, a whole different level of input into the way appliances interact with users.
Well, we're going to get back to that in just a second. But first, Ali and John, let's hear a little bit more about your guys' backgrounds. So let's start with you, Ali. Who are you? Where did you come from? And how did you end up at Energy Aware?
So I got my PhD in robotics at University of British Columbia. That was about a couple of years ago. But really, ever since I was a teenager, I was really into making cool algorithms. When I was in school, in middle school, they got the first computer, and I would write code in a piece of paper at home, and then during lunch breaks, I would break into the staff room and try it out. So this kind of became my superpower, because in programming competitions, I would partner up with someone, and I would be able to write code on paper and he would write code on the computer, and we both be working on different problems at the same time. So that actually helped us a lot. So when I first learned about energy, I got really excited about all the things that you can do with the power data. So I made a couple of algorithms and apps and started a company around that. And then we talked to Energy about it, and we actually joined forces together.
That's an awesome story. And you John?
Yeah, actually, I got into this after working on self-driving cars in university. I was leading my school's entry into the DARPA Grand Challenge, which you might remember was a contest to see who could design an off-road vehicle that could drive itself across the Nevada desert. So, there was no human control or barely any human supervision. Basically, you hit go on the car and it went from the start line to the finish line, or at least you hoped it did. So I'm not really sure there was a whole lot of transferable skill from designing robotic cars to designing home automation products, but it gave me the connections I needed to get here to be part of a young, innovative, motivated company with big ideas.
Excellent. So back to the Neurio, you're essentially, instead of setting up a bunch of sensors all over the home, you're basically going straight to the source. Is that kind of what's happening here?
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, in your average home, you probably have something like 50 power outlets, and putting sensors on every one of those outlets is just not practical. I mean, a lot of those devices don't even have your standard 2 or 3 prong plugs in them. If you take your electric baseboard heating or your stove or your hot water heater, it's not very easy to sub-meter these devices. So the way we think of it is like all of these wires that power your devices, they lead to a central source in the breaker panel. And you can kind of think of those wires as being a bit like a nervous system, but when they get to the breaker panel, there's no brain or no kind of central intelligence. That's essentially what we're trying to be here. We want to be the brain that processes all those signals and does something smart with it. So basically how we do that is we have this, what we call the Neurio sensor, which is a device that's installed inside your breaker panel, and it uses a couple current transformers to measure how much power your home is consuming. We then transmit that data over Wi-Fi, and from there it goes up into our cloud service, and that's where all of Ali's algorithmic magic happens.
Okay, so I have my toaster on my counter, I have my coffee maker on my counter, I have my electric toothbrush in the bathroom. How does it know which of these 3 things is which? I mean, obviously, I mean, if there's a different breaker for the kitchen, that's one thing, but I mean, how will it know which device is which?
Well, we actually monitor the entire home, so we don't monitor every single breaker. That kind of gets expensive really quickly. But the idea is we are trying to figure out what are the most important things to monitor to get the most value out of the system. So at the very first kind of tier, there are the major devices that have really distinct large signatures, like washing machines and dryers, ACs, and heaters. These devices actually consume about 80% of your home energy consumption. There's about 8 or 9 devices that do that. So we can actually get that from just kind of a minutely interval information that we are going to collect. And the way we extract it is basically with looking at patterns. We know what a typical AC looks like when it runs. We know what a typical dishwasher looks like. We also know what time you would usually use these devices. And, sometimes they even come in a sequence. Usually there is a washer and then there is a dryer. So all of this behavioral and kind of appliance-based models is what's driving the process. We have machine learning algorithms and mathematical models that kind of try to have a prediction when it sees a pattern of what that pattern is supposed to represent. Now, we would never be able to tell you your electric toothbrush, for instance. A lot of them are actually battery powered. They're not even on the network. But when it comes to smaller appliances, we have another part to Neurio we call Neurio Trigger, which actually monitors the energy every single second, and it can find really distinct smaller patterns because it also monitors things like power factor and voltages, and it actually is looking at even more information than before and processing them in real time.
Very interesting. And so in the development of this, were you using any Raspberry Pi, Arduino, anything like that, just for a little tinkering stuff, or like what kind of stuff were you using there?
It's funny, this product actually started as just a bit of like curiosity on our part. Before we got into Neurio, we had this an in-home display. Basically, it's a little device, wireless. You can walk around your home and it'll tell you how much power your home is consuming in real time. And it does that by connecting to a smart meter. Of course, smart meters aren't really ubiquitous yet. There's some regions that have them, some regions that don't. But we wanted to be able to actually test our product in our own home, and we didn't have a smart meter. So we needed to come up with some kind of way of measuring our own home's electricity so that we could actually use our product and figure out what the user experience was like. So we actually took one of these in-home displays that we had and basically tore it apart and breadboarded up some circuitry, and basically we connected a couple current transformers to it and made a very kind of rudimentary energy monitor out of it. And we installed a few in our homes, we installed one in our office, and the end result was basically us running around our homes and offices, turning things off and on like kids and just trying to figure out where all the power was going. And that was really when we realized that we had something pretty cool in our hands here, and that there was a lot of value in energy data that was being overlooked. So I guess to get back to your main question, we actually kind of prototyped using our existing products because they were pretty mature and we had all the firmware and we knew how they worked. So we weren't really able to take advantage of things like Arduino or Raspberry Pi. But I think kind of as those solutions have matured over the last few years, they're definitely becoming very viable platforms for prototyping new technologies. And if we were to do it now, I'd definitely be looking at Arduino as a way of making a quick mock-up just to test the theory.
Definitely. And so sustainability seems to be a driving factor with Energy Aware. So does everybody there have a strong background in sustainability? I mean, what's driving this passion?
Well, we've been in this space for about 7 years. And as I just mentioned, we were making these in-home display products before that required smart meters. And that's really how we started to walk down the path that led us to Neurio. While making these in-home displays, we realized just how valuable this data was and how cool the things we could do with it were. So we decided to kind of get away from the smart metering limitations and make a product that we could give to customers directly without the utilities involvement. And we also wanted to make sure that people get access to their own data because there's so much potential in it right now, but it's kind of locked up in proprietary systems. And we think like products like Neurio can essentially democratize that data and kind of drive some new innovative areas.
Definitely. And so earlier we were talking about how apps can be integrated into the system. What would be a user experience case scenario for something like if this, then that?
Well, we are actually talking to the If This Then That website, IFT, and what we're going to do is we want to be a trigger into their system. So the idea is that there's a number of different interesting events that we could inform other systems, other devices, whether it's just a web platform or an actual physical connected device. We could inform them through the IFT website of these events. And I'll give you a couple of examples. For instance, Neurio could let these devices know when you wake up or when you get home, because we'll see the first kind of light turn up, find that first bit of energy consumption behavior change in your home's baseline pattern. And this way we could kind of inform, the examples I used before, like your coffee maker or your hot water system. Also, because we are monitoring monitoring behavior and we can look at all appliances at once, Neurio could also find out behaviors in a more general pattern. So knowing that, for instance, on Monday, people usually wake up in this house at 8:30 a.m. So this way you could even send the message to coffee maker before somebody wakes up 10 minutes earlier saying, hey, if you want to, get ready, this is the time to start making the coffee. Then there is like the more detailed things, like when the washing machine finishes and then we don't see the dryer start, we could also send a trigger saying, it's time to do the dryer. We could, through the IFT site or through other services, we could inform the user on their smartphone or maybe change the light in their living room to kind of flash red for a couple of seconds to inform them.
So on that note, tell me more about this open API you guys have going on with the Neurio.
Well, the basic idea here is that we want to make sure this is going to become a platform that is going to enable people to do a lot of cool things, because we don't think we are going to have enough kind of power to make all these things that we have in mind possible. So we are actually opening up every piece of this product. We are going to let people connect to the sensor directly. So we're going to publish APIs and documentations for that. If you want to just talk to the sensor every single second, you can. Or you could just talk to the server where we keep the historic data and enable you to connect to it from anywhere without any firewall issues or whatnot. We are also going to integrate with a number of other products that are out there. For instance, Spark Core, which is an Arduino Wi-Fi chip. We are talking to Spark to actually integrate the two pieces together. So if you have a Spark connected device, you would be able to receive notifications or information from Neurio. Same thing about the IFT website. So we are basically building a list of partners right now to integrate everything with. So when we launch this, people would be able to very quickly pick it up and make things happen. We would even provide wrappers and source codes so that you don't have to actually start from zero. You have a base to start from if you are using MATLAB or Java or Python.
So you can design a mobile app or you can design a web app with your system.
Absolutely, or design your Arduino or Raspberry Pi based system.
So do you guys see yourselves designing something on the side just for fun, or?
Yeah, we've been kicking ideas around the office of some things we could play with here. The coffee maker seems to be a really common theme for some reason. I think we drink too much coffee, but we've been joking about hacking it with an Arduino module or a Spark core, and essentially tying it to our light switches or to just a text message or whatever, so that as soon as we come into the office in the morning and we flip the light switches, our coffee maker will automatically turn on and start brewing, because clearly that's the most important thing for us in the morning. That's just one kind of example. Another thing we're playing with right now is we have some Philips Hue Lights in the office.
Okay.
And they're like hanging over our engineering lab. And basically we've just tied the color of that light to how much energy the office as a whole is consuming. So, at the end of the night, if you're going to leave, you want to see that those lights are green, because, everything that should be shut off has been shut off. But in the middle of the day, if somebody's using a soldering iron or, all the computers are on, you'll likely see that the lights above are orange or maybe even red if we're really peaking for some reason. And that's just kind of an interesting kind of ambient feedback device that kind of gives us a sense of how much power the office is consuming and helps us become a little bit more aware and conserve some energy in the process.
Definitely. So it's almost like this is going to be the Kickstarter project that keeps on giving, and you'll just keep having Kickstarter projects.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably learn a lot from going through this Kickstarter process, and it's been great just to help us kind of really explore the bounds of what our product can do and look for new applications. And I'm sure we'll have lots of new ideas coming up in the future for complementary pieces to what we have right now. And, maybe Kickstarter would be the way to launch those as well.
And so what are the other apps that can be used with the Neurio then?
So, we also ship this out of the box with an app we call Watson, which is an energy management app. So the idea there is trying to tell people how their energy actually breaks down into individual appliances. And we've had people save in a prototype system that we've had limited in a few kind of pilot places. We've had people save up to like 44% on their energy bill, because you find out things like you have a broken baseboard heater that has been consuming a lot of energy, or a stereo system that has been misconfigured. So the basic idea there is trying to show people some real-time information about what's happening in their home, as well as a breakdown into appliances, so they actually know where they're spending money.
Excellent. And so with this launch on Kickstarter, just to change gears for a minute here and move on to crowdfunding, why did you pick Kickstarter over other platforms such as Indiegogo?
Well, when we looked around, it seemed like Kickstarter had a lot of smart home projects that were able to find a really great community there.
Yeah. And
really, community was our primary objective here. We want to be able to put this in front of people who can really appreciate it. And part of the reason for that is the product kind of straddles two existing market segments in home energy management and home automation. And so we needed to find an audience that could really understand and appreciate such a device, because it's a little different than anything else that's out there right now.
Right.
And of course, we want that community to provide feedback while the product's still in development. What kind of third-party services do they want to connect to? Like we mentioned IFT as a starting point, but I'm sure there's more out there. So what do people really see as valuable? And then what sort of visualizations do they think are useful for the energy monitoring side? These are the sort of questions that Kickstarter is really good at facilitating a conversation with the community with, and that's really what we're looking for with crowdfunding.
So one last question for you guys. How will the Neurio and other software, hardware advancements change how a smart home will look and operate 5 years from now?
I'm putting my bet on the intelligence and the algorithms that I was referring to. A very good example of that is Nest, the learning thermostat. For so many years, all these home automation devices have existed. At least for the last decade, they've been available, but they've been just really expensive and really hard to use. And recently, the trend has been they're getting cheaper. The things like smart things are finally happening. And then we had Nest, which was an individual kind of product that just had a huge market success. That wasn't just like the early adopter types. People actually liked this product, and that's because it actually made their lives easier. And to me, this is the intelligence that Nest brings to the table. So, of course, I'm the algorithm guy, so I would love to say that. But to me, I think it all gonna go down to the added intelligence and convenience that these products can start to bring to people's homes. We have like 50 plugs and 20-something light switches in our home. So there's a lot of things we need to handle. So there's a lot of room for us to actually make life easier.
Okay. Well, great, guys. Thanks for talking.
Thanks for having us, Simon.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
This week's show is brought to you by CADjunkie.com. Step up your 3D content creation game with hundreds of tutorials ranging from footwear design to 3D printing. Head over to CADjunkie.com to get a free membership today. If you'd like to find out more about Ollie, John, and the Neurio, be sure to head over to their Kickstarter page where you can purchase your unit for $150. You can also keep tabs on them after the campaign at neur.io. That's NEUR.io. On our next episode, we'll be talking to TED speaker, author, and Autodesk fellow Tom Wojcik about what it means to imagine, design, and create in 2013. Thanks for listening in today, and be sure to check in with us next time on Maker Galaxy.
a production of EVD Media.